Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and I'm here today to talk about one of possibly my new favorite Pokemon here. This is Ludicolo, an introduction to ADV Weather Clear. It's a little bit more advanced of a concept, I guess, than the uh, basics of ADV, but maybe we're saying like level 2 or 3 of the iceberg here, but Ludicolo is become one of my favorite Pokemon because I think I really love the team that I made for it. And I mean, you can critique it if you would like, if you're like, this is not a good team or whatever. That's totally fine. But no, this is the first time I've ever played with a weather clear strategy, and I think I really enjoy it. And I see the vision now. So let's get into this. Oh, before I mention. The background music right now is from Pokemon Ranger. It's a game I feel like not a lot of people are talking about and probably should be talking about. I just wanted to play Fall City here because this is, I believe, the first time I ever saw Ludicolo as a kid. I recall there being a little event in the game where you had to catch a bunch of Ludicolo who were out and about and dancing and having a good time. But I'm not gonna lie, I don't love this song, so I might switch it to something that I like a little bit more in a moment. But that being said, let's talk about the viability rankings. So Ludicolo is not an OU ranked Pokemon, shocker, but it is a UUBL ranked Pokemon, and it is fairly well respected at 46. Yeah, I mean, you're under some things such as Kingdra and Quagsire and Vaporeon, so maybe not as well respected a water type as you ought to be, but I think that Ludicolo has some really cool applications, and frankly, I think I like it a little more than Kingdra as far as weather clearing goes. That being said, I haven't played it too much with Kingdra. I played a little bit in my testing for this particular team. I did have a Kingdra, but I decided to drop it because I don't know. I didn't think it fit my vibe quite as well. But let's talk about why we want something like a weather clear in the first place, and that has to do with permanent sandstorm. So as many of you already know, the most popular Pokemon in Gen 3 OU is Tyranitar, and its ability Sandstream will set permanent sandstorm on the field. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna kill you, whoever's messaging me. Wow, that was very aggressive to start. But I digress. The what was I talking about? The permanent effects of Sandstorm serve to deal extra passive damage to all Pokemon that are not Rock, Ground, or Steel type. You could look at it as kind of a nerf to all of these Pokemon, but I look at it as a means of making progress and making sure that the game doesn't happen or that the game doesn't prolong into these 200 300 turn battles all the time. I'm sure that you have seen a revival tournaments replay where it's two sandless teams going up against each other, and at the end of the game it just turns into a pee-pee stall fest because no side can make progress because there's no residual chip from Sandstorm. And yeah, it's one of the things that is really nice for the game, but there are some teams that make use of Pokemon who do not like Sandstorm, particularly teams that don't have a lot of Rock, Ground, or Steel types. Bulky Pokemon who are not any of these types are a little bit limited in their defensive capabilities. Every bit of damage that is done to them is going to stick, and they're going to have to click Recover at some point to get rid of that, because Leftovers is not going to chip into that. And there are even some offensive Pokemon who can suffer from Sand Chip as well. Pokemon that just barely sit on the edge of getting O-Code or 2-hit KO'd, and Sand is going to put them into range for those things. It also forces a lot of offensive Pokemon to run Leftovers when they would maybe prefer to run an item that would boost their damage or give them a stat boost like a Pinch Berry. So we will talk a little bit about the Pokemon that are most harmed by Sandstorm. And I have this little graphic here that's going to help us. I kind of oriented things from like less impactful at the top to most devastating at the bottom. Uh, there's definitely context, and it depends on your team's matchup, whether a particular Pokemon is more annoyed by sand than others. So take this with a little bit of a grain of salt, and there's obviously no like hard fast rule that this Pokemon always is better into sand than this Pokemon. So just keep that in mind as I go through this. And I think this is about time to switch the music. Spinda's Cafe from Pokemon Explorers of Sky, a very nice theme. If you ever get the lottery ticket there and you get the grand prize, then Ludicolo and Colosseum will come out and dance for you, which is really fun when that happens. I would love to play that game one time. Somebody comment and validate me playing Mystery Dungeon on this channel, please. But I'm stalling too long. Let's get into the sort of graphic here. So at the top of offensive Pokemon that are not as harmed by sand are glass cannons. I'm using Blaziken as an example of this. Blaziken is clearly not the only glass cannon type of Pokemon in the game, but Pokemon like Blaziken are mostly going to die to one hit anyway, so what do they care if they're getting chipped by sand? You kind of just want to get your kill and then die with a Pokemon like Blaziken. Sometimes you can get more than one kill, and if you would like to see that, you should check out my Blaziken video. But yeah, I think that Blaziken is an offensive Pokemon that is not as worried about sand as some other ones. Another option here are Pokemon that have Leech Seed or Recover. Recover is a little bit more valuable because it has more PP and you can click it into whatever, whereas Leech Seed is prone to getting PP stalled, especially if you're playing against like a Zapdos team that has pressure. And Zapdos is decently good into grass types. It can't hit them quite well, but the grass types also can't hit Zapdos quite well either. So I have kind of as an example here, Sceptile and Starmie. Of course, Starmie can run a defensive set with Recover, but I'm talking more specifically about offensive sets that run Recover. It's not a super duper common move on offensive Starmie. They like to do 3 attacks Rapid Spin, but sometimes you can drop Rapid Spin for Recover, or you can drop one of your coverage moves for Recover if you would like. In any case, these Pokemon can get their health back in other ways, so they're a little bit less harmed by the residual chip of Sandstorm. Now, they're not perfect against it because you still have to waste a turn to click Recover or Leech Seed. Well, Leech Seed is a pretty good progress making move, so I don't necessarily view that as a waste of a turn. But to undo the damage that your opponent does to you, and yeah, Leech Seed has a little bit more counterplay. They could switch to Celebi, for example. That being said, that because you have some healing options, then you're not as bad into sand as you might be. The next would be rest boosters. Now, every Pokemon in the game that can learn TMs has access to the move rest, as far as I know. So technically, any Pokemon could run Rest, but there are some that are a lot better at doing it than others. Suicune is probably the most prominent example. But Sand is not nice for Suicune because Rest is a huge commitment to click. You would prefer not to click it if you can help it, but or I guess unless you're in a really advantageous position where you can effectively PP stall, and that's why Suicune is really nice with Rest. But it does not like getting sand chipped either. It's sitting on the precipice of a lot of 3-hit KO benchmarks, and sand is going to push those benchmarks because you're not getting the leftovers to undo some of the damage. So Suicune would really like to not be in sand, but because it has rest and because it's really bulky and because it's boosting its special defense stat, it can kind of get by. Now, if you have multiple rest boosters on your team, then you probably will want to look into weather clear strategies to help those out, but that is basically what I have to say about rest boosters. Then there are some Pokemon who boost and don't have recovery. I have Ursaring as an example here. That being, I mean, Ursaring is not a very common Pokemon in OU, but it does have a little bit of a niche. It has access to Swords Dance, which is really, really nice. But a Pokemon like Ursaring, and don't let me stop you from using a rest Ursaring, but Ursaring, in my view, would like to click Swords Dance and then like to just blow up whatever's in front of it with a strong move like Double Edge or Earthquake. And then if it goes down, it goes down. But hopefully you get a lot of big damage or get a kill for doing it. And these Pokemon, because they have to spend a turn to boost, that's Sand Chip applied. That's a turn that your opponent can attack you and keep that damage on if you have leftovers. And you have no recovery to counteract, so like every bit of chip is sticking to you, and you're in a bad spot. Another example of a Pokemon that could be in this category is Curslax. Sometimes Curslax will not run rest because it wants coverage, which is totally reasonable depending on your team and your playstyle. But that particular set is really, really not nice into sand. Now, if again anything that boosts and attacks, as long as it kills whatever's in front of it, then you're kind of okay to just allow your Mon to take a lot of damage. You're kind of just fine to trade in many cases, but it severely reduces their efficacy as a win condition. So that's something to keep in mind. And then at the bottom, I have Pokemon that rely on Substitute and Pinch Berries. Pinch Berries I'm defining to be the ones that boost your stats, like Lychee, Salac, Starf, all that. All those Pokemon that rely on those berries or Substitute to sweep really, really do not like to be in Sandstorm. Substitute is going to lose a quarter of your HP stat, and Sand is going to keep you from being able to recover that off with leftovers. And then the Pinch Berries, oftentimes these Pokemon are looking to get down to really low HP, like a 25% or possibly even 1 HP in the case of Heracross, who might want to use Reversal as an option. If you have Sand up, then that really limits your ability to do anything there. Heracross would have to go down to 25% HP to activate its Pinch Berry. Its Reversal is not going to be quite as strong as you would like. So you're kind of limited to spamming Megahorn, which, I mean, Megahorn at 25% with the Swarm boost, I mean, you could do a lot worse, obviously. But you're also prone to getting stalled out. If an opponent has a Pokemon that can take Megahorn well and recover, say like Milotic, maybe if a status Milotic even, or if they have a Pokemon who can use Protect and stall out turns, then Heracross is severely limited in its ability to sweep. Now, again, if you can trade up, you get 1 or 2 Pokemon, then you might be okay with that. But if your strategy is particularly to go down to 1 HP and get Reversal off, then you absolutely need to clear the weather in order to get that to work. So that's why it's Sand is the most devastating for these types of Pokemon. Another option would be like Medicham, or anything that wants to do reversal strategies, frankly. Then for the defensive side, we have Recover Spammers at the top, Pokemon like Blissey and Milotic, and even Celebi, who is just below it with Leech Seed. These Pokemon have, similarly to like our offensive Starmie, the capabilities to undo the damage progress that's done to them. And frankly, they can kind of get away with it more because they have more HP, so they don't necessarily have to click Recover every turn to undo the damage. They could probably stomach a hit and do whatever they need to do, get a Thunder Wave, get a Toxic, and then start recovering. This is why you don't necessarily hate to have Blissey on your own Sand team or even Milotic in some cases, they're usually self-sufficient enough to handle the Sand Chip. Now, Leech Seed defensive Pokemon like Celebi, and oftentimes Celebi, if it's running a defensive set, will have Leech Seed and Recover, but if you're opting to drop Recover for whatever reason, they're a little bit tougher because they don't get as much healing, generally speaking, as somebody who can just click Recover very easily, and also you're prone to getting PP stalled. But like any sort of healing can be really nice for you. The next would be Pokemon that don't have Recovery, or that maybe they have Rest as their only Recovery move, but they're Spikes immune. There are not very many Pokemon that fall in this category, but one that comes to my mind is Articuno. Articuno does not have access to Recover. Rest does not exist in this, or Roost does not exist in this generation. Sorry, I was getting my moves mixed up here. But because you don't take Spikes damage, at the very least, you can kind of switch around with this. It's not the ideal case. You would maybe prefer to not have Sand up so that you can go for Rest as your primary recovery move and allow yourself to come back into the game at some point. But that's kind of the rub with using Articuno. Maybe we'll see what happens if you use Articuno in the future. Personally, I've never used it before, so don't expect anything too soon. But yeah, and then the last would be Pokemon that have no recovery and are Spikes weak. Now, I use Dusclops as an example here. Yeah, Dusclops kind of has recovery with Pain Split, but that is a little bit dependent on your opponent having high HP Pokemon that you can abuse for Pain Split. If your opponent goes to some low HP Pokemon like Dugtrio or Jolteon, you're not going to recover that much, especially if they're chipped already. And then taking the extra Spikes damage is going to put you lower and lower, and you're not recovering anything with your leftovers. And as a defensive Pokemon, like Spikes wearing you down, Sand stagnating your HP, it's really tough to get a lot of use out of your defensive Pokemon in this case. So this is another area where you might want to consider Weather Clear for your team. That being said, you know, Dusclops has its own utility, and it is self-sufficient in other ways. It does have a lot of problems though. And yes, this note here is just to let you know that yes, I recognize that a lot of Pokemon have Rest. Yes, defensive Pokemon can use Rest very effectively because they have the defenses to take a lot of hits, but being forced to rest means that you're allowing your opponent to get free turns, and giving your opponent free turns means that they can punish you pretty hard. So that is definitely worth considering if your strategy for dealing with Sand Chip is Rest. So let's go on. How can we help these Pokemon who are Sand weak? Well, I mean, I kind of already talked about Weather Clear as an option, but the best thing that you can do to help your Sand weak Pokemon is to not have Tyranitar on your team. I know this sounds like a really dumb concept, but there are a lot of players who will build a team and say, okay, I have my team built the way that I want it. It has a bunch of Sand weak Pokemon on it. What can I do to help my team? Oh, I know. I want a Dragon Dance Tyranitar, or I want a Pursuit Tyranitar. And yeah, Dragon Dance Tyranitar can be a really good mid-game breaker / win condition, and Pursuit Tyranitar can give you a lot of help with eliminating key Pokemon like Gengar, so you can spin. But if you have a bunch of Sand weak Pokemon on your team and you put Tyranitar on your team, well, then you're just hurting all those Sand weak Pokemon. That is more common than you would think, and it is one of the first hurdles of team building that people have to jump. And I might be making a team building video in the not too distant future. I still want to gather some resources and figure out the sort of things that I want to say for it. But it is slightly in the works already, so expect that to come out at some point in the not too distant future, probably before I hit 1,000 subscribers, hopefully. Well, actually, no, hopefully not. Hopefully I just get 1,000 subscribers overnight. That would be awesome. But other things you can do is use moves that change the weather, which can eliminate the passive damage from Sandstorm. Now, there are two options in this generation to do that. Well, technically there's a third, but that third is called Hail, and Hail is not... If you're going to clear the weather, why would you clear the weather to something that also does passive damage for a few more turns? Like, that, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And Hail does not have a lot of use cases in this generation. There's no Slush Rush. Like, Blizzard it exists, but you don't necessarily want to be clicking Hail for the sake of Blizzard spamming. You usually are better off just spamming Ice Beam. But the two options you have generally are Sunny Day, which is a move that creates harsh sunlight, which has some nice effects, and Rain Dance. So I have some Pokemon here. The Pokemon I have next to Sunny Day are Pokemon that either can easily set the Sunny Day or have some qualities that make them good for Sunny Day. I'll talk a little bit more about them on the next slide. And Rain Dance, same thing. Pokemon that can set it pretty low at low cost or get a lot out of Rain Dance. But of course, Ludicolo is a Pokemon that can set Rain Dance and has a lot to do with that. But you know how a Tetrafolium video goes. I'm not going to talk about the featured Pokemon until later in the video. So the first thing we want to talk about is how you pick your weather clear. And this is two parts. One is, do you want Rain Dance or Sunny Day? And the second part is, which Pokemon on your team is going to use weather clear? So the first thing that you should acknowledge is whether your team needs clearing at all. There's a pretty significant opportunity cost to dedicating one of your limited move slots to weather clear, and many teams don't really need it to be successful. So I have an example of a team here. This is a team I kind of just threw together Pokemon for the sake of making a point. I don't know if this team would necessarily be successful, but this is like a Skarm Mag type of team. And I want you to notice that we have Skarmory, Magneton, Metagross, Swampert, and Claydol on this team. All of these Pokemon are immune to Sandstorm damage. And then there's Blissey at the end. And yeah, Blissey kind of likes its leftovers recovery. And it could be nice to have the option to just clear the weather and allow Blissey to do that. But the rest of your team really does not need it. And Blissey has Soft Boiled to undo some damage, and it has monstrous defensive stats, so particularly on the special side, but its physical defense is not that bad when you consider how high its HP is, and that it has Soft Boiled. So, like, you don't need to clear the weather, and in fact, some of these Pokemon like there being sand. Metagross and Swampert can beat down opposing sand-weak Pokemon, and they will outpace in healing, which is really nice. Skarmory, it likes that as well, because it's going to set the spikes, and Pokemon who have leftovers healing the spikes damage off is going to kind of counteract what Skarmory wants. So this team actually would really like sand, even though we don't have our own Tyranitar. So keep that in mind when you're building your team, is that sometimes your team really does not need weather clear, and this is an example of a team that really wouldn't need it. But after we've decided that our team actually would like to have weather clear, how are we going to pick it? So The next thing we want to do once we've figured that we would like Weather Clear is to identify which Pokemon on the team are able to give up a move slot for your Rain Dance or your Sunny Day. The candidates for this would be Pokemon with limited coverage options like Magneton, Zapdos, or Moltres. These Pokemon are going to be using a Stab, a Hidden Power, and then you have 2 move slots to figure out what you need to do. Now, that being said, sometimes you would like to have Roar or Toxic or Protect or something like that, or Thunder Wave in the case of the electric types. And those could probably help you out in a lot more situations, but it is good to know that these Pokemon are flexible and customizable with their last 2 move slots, and if you need to, they don't lose too much out of going for a Rain Dance or a Sunny Day option instead. And then for the case of Moltres, Sunny Day is going to boost your Fire type moves, and that's the next bullet point here, is Pokemon who want damage boosting effects. So I have Suicune and Charizard as options here. I will say Suicune does not run Rain Dance all that frequently. It really likes to have particular moves, like for example on a defensive Suicune you want Surf, you want Rest, and then the last 2 move slots you would really like some combination of Sleep Talk, Roar, Ice Beam, a Calm Mind. Of course you have to have Calm Mind on Suicune, like that's if you're not running Calm Mind on Suicune, just run Milotic. But you could choose Rain Dances as one of the options. That will help you to not take Sand Chip anymore, which Suicune really likes. It also gives you a few turns of boosted Surf damage, which is also really nice. You could also do this on a offensive Suicune. So offensive Suicune tends to run Calm Mind, Hydro Pump, Ice Beam, and then the last move is sometimes Roar, sometimes Rest. Rain Dance could fit there as well, or sometimes it's HP, Grass, or Electric. But yeah, needless to say, Rain Dance is an option for that. And then Charizard is in a similar kind of boat. It doesn't tend to run Rest, but it does tend to run Substitute, and sometimes you would like to get some HP chip healing back from your leftovers for that. But there is another Charizard set that uses Sun to boost its damage, and then tries to go down to Blaze range and proc a Pataya Berry, so that you have these like the strongest fire type moves you could ever imagine, which is kind of cool. It's a little inconsistent because it'll thud into really bulky water types like Suicune, but it is kind of nice. And then there are Pokemon who have abilities that synergize with weather, mostly abilities that double your speed. And examples of that would be Exeggutor, Kingdra, and Ludicolo. So Exeggutor has Chlorophyll, doubles the speed in Sun, whereas Kingdra and Ludicolo have Swift Swim, which double your speed in Rain. I think that all of these are potential candidates, right, for using these boosting moves, but I want to note that sometimes clearing the Sandstorm can present other problems for your team. So let's take a look at this team we have up here. Suppose we're gonna weather clear anyway, even though like this team is perfectly fine into sand and sometimes even likes sand. Suppose that we run Sunny Day on our Claydol, and we set Sunny Day. Well, now fire type moves have boosted damage, and we have 3 Pokemon on this team who are weak to fire type moves in Skarmory, Magneton, and Metagross. So now all of a sudden a HP Fire Celebi, who was not, I mean, it would give this team some trouble, especially if it has Leech Seed to punish the Blissey. But now, like for a few turns, Metagross is going to get 2-hit KO'd. Magneton potentially gets 1-hit KO'd. Probably 2-hit KO'd, though. Skarmory is going to be taking hefty amounts of damage for no reason. You're going to have to protect to chip heal, which gives Celebi a potential turn to set up a Calm Mind and then be even more devastating on the next turn. And then it also doesn't help that Swampert is going to be doing less damage with its Surf or Hydro Pump while the sun is up. And then Rain Dance is in a similar vein. This team has no water resists, and if we Rain Dance and give the opportunity for, say, an opposing Swampert to Hydro Pump into us, we do not have a lot of great switch-ins for that. We would have to go to Blissey, but if this is an offensive Swampert with a strong Earthquake and potentially Focus Punch, then we could be in real trouble, especially when we set weather like that. Now, granted, this team up here has some pretty significant problems. You would want to switch some things around, for sure. But, note that your team may not have quite as many problems as this, but picking, say, Sunny Day when you have Metagross, you have to keep in mind that Fire-type moves are going to be even stronger into Metagross. Or same thing with Rain Dance, because Metagross doesn't take Water-type moves all that well either. And yeah, just keep that in mind. But let's say we've done all these checks. We're like, okay, our team would like Weather Clear. We want to use a Pokemon that gets good synergy with Weather and doesn't mind giving up a move slot for it. Let's move on to talk about why I think Ludicolo is really good at doing this. So Ludicolo has a Water Grass dual type, which is extremely rare. We didn't get another Water Grass type until Ogerpon Wellspring in Generation 9. And I mean, well, you know how good Ogerpon Wellspring is. Okay, well, actually, maybe you don't, because you're watching ADV YouTube right now, so you probably have sworn off modern generations, which is totally valid. I definitely get it. I really don't like terastallization as a mechanic. It's one of the driving factors for me to have seeked out a new metagame. So, but just know that Ogerpon Wellspring has Ludicolo's dual type, and it has ridiculous stats and ridiculously strong moves to go with it. But what does Ludicolo do with this type? Well, for one, it is going to resist Metagross's Meteor Mash and Earthquake, and it's not weak to Rock Slide. So any Metagross that is teching Rock Slide to hit Zapdos is not going to do that much to Ludicolo in the long run. In fact, Metagross is basically forced to click Boom if it wants to do anything to Ludicolo, which is a great position to be in. Now, I guess Choice Band Metagross with Meteor Mash can kind of just muscle through whatever it wants, especially if it gets the raise. But against any other Metagross set, they're really, really struggling against Ludicolo. Another thing is that Ludicolo is a bulky water type that does not fear Leech Seed from Celebi as a progress impeder to force it out. So that's pretty good. There are a lot of things that you would like a water type to sit in front of, Metagross being one of them. And if Celebi comes in to Leech Seed that, then all of a sudden your bulky water is not so good at sitting in front of certain things and is forced to switch out, potentially taking spikes damage when it comes back in, and it's just a headache. So Ludicolo avoids that. Another thing is that because we are Water Grass, we ×4 resist any water type move. So any Pokemon that's running Mono Surf, like in particular Suicune, we can shut that down and we can say, no, you're not going to be able to do any damage to us. So Ludicolo is actually not too bad into a Last Mon Suicune situation. Now, that being said, you got to be careful to not let yourself get PP stalled all the way down to 0. You're going to have to make some smart switches and figure out ways to preserve PP. But Ludicolo can beat Last Mon Suicune. That can be an option for you. At the very least, force it to rest, and then you can go to something that will do more significant damage. So, compared to other Pokemon with Swift Swim, I have Kingdra, Gorbis, and Amistar here. And in parentheses is their base special attack stat. Amistar 115. Would you have clocked that? Did you think that Amistar had that high a special attack stat? I didn't. That's higher than Salamence. You think that Amistar would have a higher Spatak than Salamence? Yeah, I don't think I would have. So, these are the other prominent Swift swimmers. These are all the UU or UUBL Swift swimmers. There are no OU ranked ones. Actually, that's a lie. There's Quillfish is a UU ranked one, but it has a really poor special attack stat, so I did not include it in this list. While they all have slightly higher special attack stats than Ludicolo, who is sitting at a not too bad 90, Ludicolo has a much more usable secondary stab type than the rest of them. So Kingdra with Dragon, it doesn't have Dragon Claw. If you want to use its stab, you're having to settle for Dragon Breath, which is 60 base power. And that's not great, especially for a type that hits like basically nothing for super effective. Ice Beam is going to be so much better against every single dragon type that you would want to hit with Kingdra that it's not even funny. Now, I guess if you're up against opposing Kingdra, then yes, technically Dragon Breath would be the most optimal click, but like, I mean, I don't think it's worth teching for that. Gorbis has no secondary stab. It's a pure water type. And then Amistar's secondary stab is Rock, which is not a special attacking type. So doesn't really get a whole lot out of that from the offensive side. So Ludicolo having Grass will give it the opportunity to deal with opposing water types much better. Because these Pokemon tend to run Water Move, Ice Beam as their primary attacking moves, they have the opportunity to get walled by opposing water types, whereas Ludicolo can choose to not be walled by them by going for Giga Drain or HP Grass and having stab on that. Now granted, yes, all of these can run HP Grass or Electric to give them the coverage to hit, but they will be significantly weaker because they're not stab boosted. So yeah, that's what Ludicolo does for us. Let's take a look at Ludicolo's, that's Zapdos' standards sets. Let me fix that real quick. There we go. Ludicolo standard sets. Yes, I do reuse assets as I go between these, and sometimes I don't catch those little errors, and we have to do it on video, but that's fine because it makes it more human. There's more of a to err is human, somebody once said, and I'm showing you my human side here. That sounded really, really weird and frankly Zuckerberg-esque. So let's ignore that and continue. There's a stall set with Ludicolo, which runs Leech Seed, Toxic, and sometimes Synthesis. It's kind of interesting that this set does not tend to run Rain Dance, at least as far as the write-up would say. You could get a lot of value out of that. Ludicolo has the ability Rain Dish, which basically gives it leftovers healing while there's rain. So you can get double leftovers healing, so you're kind of like almost like a Poison Heal Breloom or Gliscor before those even existed, which is kind of interesting. And then with Leech Seed, you can heal basically like an entire substitute's worth of HP every turn, if you had all of those things going. Now, that might be a little excessive, and clicking Rain Dance is a turn that you're not doing something better, like getting Surf damage, applying Toxic, applying Leech Seed. So I kind of understand, but this could have some pretty good synergy with other Rain users like Kingdra. We have Synthesis. I want to note that Synthesis is not as good when there are certain weather conditions up. I want to say that rain reduces it. Let me check. Let's see. Synthesis heals the user by a weather-dependent amount. That is really helpful, Smogon. That is not at all what I wanted to see. Maybe I'm going to have to... You know what? I'm just going to say it, and if it's misinformation, you'll correct me in the comments section. Synthesis gives you 75% healing when Sunny Day is active, and I believe only a quarter when Rain is active, and I believe also when Sand is active. So, yeah, that's... maybe it's not great synergy with Rain type things, so maybe that's why you would have Synthesis here. Although Protect is another option. You also have Seismic Toss if you're not comfortable with going for Surf. Seismic Toss is going to be more consistent damage against most things, but Surf is going to hit a good number of Pokemon harder, particularly the water-weak Pokemon like Tyranitar. Then we have the Rain Sweeper, who's using Rain Dance, a water move, Ice Beam, and you could do Leech Seed or Hidden Power Grass. So this set is running a very awkward speed stat at 202. It's hard to know exactly what that's for unless you read the write-up for it. It said that is specifically so that you will outspeed a +1 speed Adamant Heracross when the rain is up. How likely are you to be able to get the rain up and then have an Adamant Salac Heracross in against your Ludicolo? I don't really know. There could be opportunities for a different Pokemon to set up rain so that you can go to Ludicolo on revenge there, but it's a little strange. You also outspeed standard Milotic, who sits at about 198. Sometimes they'll run a little bit of speed to try to speed creep certain Metagross sets. So like they might sit at around 200 or so. And 202 is going to pretty safely outspeed that. So that's sort of the idea here. We have some HP investment, which will help us out against Metagross in particular, and then maxed out special attacks so that we can hit crazy strong Hydro Pumps or Surfs. Leech Seed is really nice on this set because you're probably going to clear the weather with Rain Dance. And then you're going to get some leftovers healing, but you can throw the Leech Seed on and get a lot of healing. Depending on what you Leech Seed, you could heal up to like 33% in a turn, which is really, really good and really nice for a Pokemon who's going to be essentially setting up with Rain Dance, taking a hit, and then forcing certain high HP Pokemon in to not take crazy damage from Hydro Pump. But you could also run HP Grass if you particularly need it to handle opposing bulky waters. But I have a slightly different take on this, so let's show that right here. This is the bulky Rain Dance Sweeper. So I am going to cut into the special attack a little bit and give to the defense in particular. Why am I doing this? Well, this is so that I can survive 2 body slams from Utility Lax if I clear the sand. Snorlax is a Pokemon that sometimes likes to come in on Ludicolo. You know, it's great that Ludicolo is going to clear the weather potentially for the Utility Lax. And it can go for Body Slam and try to get the Para, which can be really annoying. This is so that we can more consistently get the Leech Seed off on the Lax. And if we get it off, depending on what HP we're at and whether we're paralyzed or not, we have some options for what we can do with Ludicolo afterwards. If the rain dance has ended, or if we weren't able to set up the rain dance and maybe the sand has not been set yet, then we have the opportunity to try to set up rain dance if we would like to. Or we can just take some surf damage, or we could fish for ice beam freeze. Or like we can frankly just switch and then we can come back in with Ludicolo later and still have plenty of HP to take another body slam later. So that's a pretty good benchmark for me. And this will also help us to survive a non-banded Metagross going for Meteor Mash. If it gets a raise, it can go for Meteor Mash again and threaten to kill the standard Ludicolo set. But because we have some defense investment, we'll still live that as well. And this is, of course, outside of sand. If we're in sand, then the rolls get a little bit more dicey for us. But I think that's really nice because Ludicolo, if you have rain up, can 2-hit KO Metagross. So if we're up against, say, like Agility Metagross, who's opting to go for the Meteor Mash beatdown on our Ludicolo, then we can set up rain, go for the 2-hit KO with Surf, and then we're going to trade Ludicolo for Metagross, which is generally not too bad. Ludicolo's main job is to wall Metagross, as well as clear sand, and it can do both at the same time with this particular set. As for our attacks, Surf is going to 1-hit KO Zard and Aerodactyl. It's going to 2-hit KO pretty much all the other water weaks, like Moltres and Tyranitar. Maybe not every single Tyranitar, but most of them we will get. And in the rain, we're gonna 2-hit KO a lot of things. Most of the offensive neutral type of Pokemon. Now some of them, like a defensive or particularly especially bulky Pokemon like Snorlax or Regice or Blissey, we're not going to get. But a lot of the Pokemon like a Flygon, like a Zapdos, we might be able to 2-hit KO. That being said, we have Ice Beam, which hits both of those Pokemon usually harder. Now, Zapdos, you would hit harder if Rain is up with Surf, I think. Let's see, because you get 1.5 times for Stab, times another 1.5 for the Weather, and that should be 2.25 times, which is higher than the double damage you would get from Ice Beam super effective. See, I watched Pinkercross, I know. But yeah, Ice Beam is going to OHKO, Mence, and Flygon. It's going to 2-hit KO offensive Zapdos. It might get some 2-hit KOs on some other Pokemon that I didn't look into. But those are the main examples there. And yeah, I opted to go a little bit faster at 204, which is going to help us to outspeed any bulky DD Tar and Milotic. Bulky DD Tar, for whatever reason, sits at 203. I don't know if that's for Ludicolo in particular, but I mean, it does sit there. So with 2 more points of speed, we can outspeed that, and we can get our Surfs off before the DD Tyranitar can get its HP bugs off on us. We're still going to outspeed +1 Adamant Hera in the rain, but I also want to note that we will outspeed an Agility Metagross in the rain. So even after it gets its boost, it sits at a much lower speed stat than 204 usually. So that's quite good for us. We're not going to outspeed most Choice Banded Metagross who sit at 108 for Marowak, but I think that's ultimately okay because we're not going to take too many hits from we don't want to take too many hits from a Choice Band Metagross anyway. We would like to just take one, get our Leech Seed off, and then maybe we could go for Surfs, and yeah. So you could maybe opt to go for a little bit more speed, but you're going to have to cut more into your special attack, or you're going to have to accept that you are not going to be quite as good against Snorlax and cut into the defense, which is maybe okay. Kind of tailor the Pokemon to fit your needs. That is exactly what I'm doing here, so I'd recommend that you do the same. And the team structure that I have for this, I call this Ludi Reversal Hera. Now, this is a team that's stacking some Pokemon that would like Weather Clear, particularly Snorlax and Heracross, but Zapdos also kind of likes Weather Clear as well. I don't have Thunder to take advantage of the rain, which, I mean, maybe I could, but I don't know. Thunder is a little bit less consistent outside of rain that I don't know if I necessarily want that. So 4 of the 6 Pokemon on this team will apply heavy pressure to Tyranitar, those being Starmie, Heracross, Ludicolo, Metagross. Starmie a little less so, because I have a more bulky Starmie. But Heracross, Ludi, and Meta definitely would feast on a Tyranitar. And once the Tar is eliminated, we can use Ludicolo to clear the weather, and then we allow for Snorlax and Heracross to potentially just win the game. We have a lead Rest Talk Zapdos because, I mean, I'm just on a Zapdos bender. I need to stop building teams with Zapdos, but Zapdos is so good, and I really, really like it. And this is a new set that I haven't tried on any other team. But we have this lead Rest Talk Zapdos, who has, of course, a modest nature, to apply early pressure against opposing Zapdos, Suicune, Metagross, and Mence from the lead slot. But we could use Rest after the weather is cleared and maintain our health for the mid game. And we're not giving up a ton of momentum because we can still Sleep Talk and be dangerous with Thunderbolts / HP Grasses as the opportunities present themselves. We have a bulky Toxic Starmie to generate momentum or chip against bulky Waters, who are sometimes a little tough for Ludicolo and Metagross to break through, and can be annoying for Heracross. Heracross is probably going to need to get a Swords Dance boost to get past these bulky Waters. So Starmie is going to be kind of nice to annoy them. Starmie, especially a defensive Starmie, oftentimes lures in Milotic, and if we can get a Toxic on Milotic, then we can either get a free turn to switch because Milotic has to click refresh, or Milotic is going to keep the Toxic on, and then we can pressure with Zapdos / Ludicolo in particular. We have a Choice Band Metagross in the back to either Houdini the Spiker. If you don't know what Houdini is, that is Choice Band Metagross clicking Explosion, and it's Houdini because it's like all of a sudden your Spiker disappeared. I think it was actually because there was a player running around on ladder at some point with a lead shiny Metagross that was nicknamed Houdini. I choose to believe that's why they nicknamed it Houdini, but yeah, it's kind of funny, and a quirk of this metagame that I really love. And even if we're not gonna Houdini the Spiker, we can still click really heavy Meteor Mashes and get a lot of damage off on a lot of things. And Curse Rest, Lax, and Sub-Salac Heracross are our win cons, and they can eliminate key threats, even if they're not going to just completely win the game, to facilitate the other one to be the win con. So Snorlax, it's like, well, if we can trade our Snorlax into something like a Zapdos, then Heracross can more easily win the game with Mega Horn spam. And kind of vice versa, if Heracross can trade into, say, I don't know, like a Tyranitar, then Snorlax can win the game. Now, that being said, most of the time with those examples, those mons will just beat what's in front of them, not necessarily have to trade. But there can be situations where you're opting to take the trade so that the other mon can win. And yeah, so we're kind of stacking, like I said, some of the sand weak Pokemon and allowing Ludicolo to get its utility as a weather clearer, and that's the idea with the team. So we are going to get into the battles here. I'm going to give you one guess at what battle music I'm going to be using for this particular uh, section of the video, and let's see if you guessed right. This is one of my favorite songs in all of Pokemon. This is Miror B's, what is it? Miror B's Retro Groove. This song is just so frenetic, and Miror B as a character is just a joy to see every time. And his team is just all Ludicolos and whatever Shadow Pokemon at the time that you fight them, which I think is hilarious. If I was a Pokemon trainer, I'd probably do the same thing, where I just stack my entire team with one Pokemon, and I'm the Ludicolo guy, I guess, for the sake of Miror B. This music might be a little bit louder than I would like for the video's sake, but it's such a banger, so we're gonna continue with it. And yes, I was so looking forward to having this in a video here. So the first battle here, we're up against a lead Hariyama. Zapdos is not so bad into Hariyama, especially this rest zap. If we get knocked off, that's kind of okay. We can just rest and get our HP back that way. And Sleep Talk means that we're not so devastated by being asleep. But my opponent will switch to Celebi here. I crit, which probably isn't going to matter in the long run. I'm going to go straight to Heracross, though, because I think on a team with Hariyama, Celebi is most likely going to be a defensive variant who's going to be slower than Heracross. So I'm threatening to Mega Horn here, but instead of going straight for a Mega Horn, I'm actually going to double to Metagross, predicting my opponent to want to switch into something that would take a Heracross hit better. And Salamence is exactly what we want to see here. So Choice Banded Meteor Mash, I should just straight up kill this. It goes for Flamethrower, and it doesn't actually do that much, so that tells me that this is probably a bulky Salamence, and I missed my Meteor Mash. And then going to Snorlax here, yeah, this has got to be like a Wish Salamence. Fortress comes in, and I'm like, okay, I know this team structure now. There is a team, I don't know if Benji is the progenitor of this team, but Benji likes a certain style of team that is very similar to this that he calls Bulky Mixed Wish. I don't believe that his Bulky Mixed Wish variant has Celebi on it, but it does have Hariyama, Fortress, and Salamence, and I'm anticipating that there's going to be a second Wish Passer in the back. So Fortress is going to thud my Snorlax, but I'm going to go to Starmie to go ahead and get the spin, and there is a Umbreon here, which is exactly what Benji's team likes to have. Against Umbreon, I'm going to go for Toxic. The opposing Umbreon goes for Toxic on my Starmie, which is really interesting. But I kind of figured that Toxic is really good for me because it's going to either force the Celebi to have to click Heal Bell later, or this Umbreon is going to be Toxic, and I can always just Natural Cure to get out. I want you to notice something here, though. This is something that I don't know how many of you know. Watch me get this Toxic on Umbreon. So it's Toxic. I'm poisoned. I take 12%. Umbreon takes 6%. So Synchronize. This is something that I don't know if you know this. In this generation, if you Toxic a Synchronized Pokemon, you will get regular poisoned rather than full-on Toxic, which is kind of interesting. I think I'd actually prefer to have gotten full-on Toxic. I would have taken less damage, but I'm going to switch out, predicting my opponent to not go for Pursuit. But even if they did go for Pursuit, like it's not to my benefit to stay in with Starmie and take extra damage, so that the next Pursuit is just going to kill me. And my Starmie is bulky enough to live a Pursuit from Umbreon, even when it's switching out, so I'm kind of fine to take that. But my opponent will instead go for Protect. It's kind of interesting. I'm going to go hard to Ludicolo, anticipating Salamence to want to come in. And now that Ludicolo is in, I can go for an Ice Beam and just kill the Salamence. Kind of a little bit of an irresponsible play, I think, from my opponent to not respect Ludicolo's Ice Beam. But I'm going to stay in versus the Celebi and get some Ice Beam chip there. Now Celebi is going to have to recover, so I can go to Metagross here. So now Metagross is in, Fortress will switch, and I'm going to Houdini the Fortress, which is exactly what I wanted to happen. Now, if my opponent went to Hariyama or Umbreon or stayed in with Celebi, I would accept that as well, but getting the Fortress is exactly what I needed. Now, I want to note here, famously, Choice Band Adamant Max Attack Metagross will get a one-shot kill on the standard Skarmory set. Fortress, who runs the exact same EV spread, has a chance to live Explosion. This is because Fortress has a higher HP stat than Skarmory does, so we just barely are not guaranteed to get the kill. Now, I think the roll is favored, and especially at 97%. So this was fine for me, but if I didn't get the KO, I could at least go to something like Zapdos and apply some pressure here. Now Starmie can come in, and I can spin the Spike away, and now my opponent will never have Spikes for the rest of the game. I take an HP Grass for admittedly not that much damage, so I can just recover here. And if my opponent goes for anything other than HP Grass, then I will get away with it. They actually reveal Perish Song. I think they were anticipating that I would switch to something that would want to set up on it, like Snorlax, but I'm kind of fine with that. I go to Zapdos there, not because I think Zapdos can beat Celebi, but because I think Celebi is going to go for Leech Seed, and allowing Zapdos to take the Leech Seed means that Celebi is going to burn 2 of its PP, because there is a potential that this endgame comes down to a PP stall, and I want to get ahead of that early, so that's kind of an advanced move right there. Some of you guys would have missed that, but that's why I'm here to explain it for you. Ludicolo is in versus Hariyama, so now I can go for Surf just to take a little bit of damage there. Celebi comes in and kind of blanks that, which is not nice. I'll stay in, again anticipating Celebi to want a Leech Seed, so that wastes a Leech Seed. I will go for Ice Beam. Now Celebi's going to have to recover, and Heracross can come in. If I hit my Mega Horn, I will kill it. I don't hit my Mega Horn, and it goes for Perish Song. It's unfortunate. I'll go for it again, though. And I do a decent amount of damage to Hariyama, but not enough to really get anywhere. So now I'm going to have to switch. I'll go to Ludicolo, who is not too long for this world anyway because of the Toxic. And I'm fine to take the knockoff there. I'll go for Ice Beam, anticipating Celebi to want to come in, and I can get some chip on it, force it to recover. I'm going to do it again. And then I believe I'm going to do it again. Yeah, Ludicolo was going to die at some point anyway. I didn't find that it was going to be too useful for me to switch, and like I don't want to get Leech Seeded on Heracross if I can help it. So I'm just going to come in and Mega Horn. I get some damage on on Hariyama, and now I'll go for Substitute. I'm going to sub down to to Swarm range. I'll Swords Dance here, and my opponent will go for Brick Break. I could go for Mega Horn here, which would kill the Hariyama, but I get greedy and I go for another substitute to get down to 1 HP so that I can threaten to sweep with Reversal. But the Hariyama reveals to have Whirlwind, which is not great for my Heracross. Although, the next time the Heracross comes in, it will get its Salac boost, so I can still kind of sweep from there. I just won't have the times 2. In that case, I end up into Zapdos. I'm just gonna take my Thunderbolt and chip whatever. I will not go to Heracross here because that seems pretty risky. Leech Seed or Hidden Power Grass would just kill my Heracross, and then now I'm down my win condition. Instead, I'm going to go for Snorlax, get a Curse boost, and go for Return into Hariyama. I could opt to go for Return again. That would kill the Hariyama, which I do. But Celebi comes in and does not take nearly enough for me to really want to stay in and do much there. So I will go to Zapdos, force this thing to try to Leech Seed me. It's going to run out of Leech Seeds. Note that on replays, it does not track pressure. So this Celebi, it says it has 11 Leech Seeds, but it actually has less than that, probably 8. Now probably 7. If I was counting right, I might have been counting wrong. It might actually have even less than that. But in any case, I'm going to switch back and forth between Snorlax and Zapdos until the Celebi runs out of Leech Seeds. I go for Thunderbolt, I get a pair on Celebi. It's not very consequential. Go to Snorlax, get Leech Seeded. It's ultimately okay, though, because I can switch back to Zapdos. This Celebi is going to run out of moves eventually. I'm going to also go back to Snorlax here. Umbreon does nothing into Snorlax. I can just go for Return, because I do not want Umbreon to wish past to Hariyama. Now Celebi will get the wish, and it's not getting much out of that. I'll go to Zapdos, burn the Leech Seed PP. Now back to Snorlax. Umbreon is in, and yes, okay, so Umbreon can run Charm as a potential move to stop Snorlax from setting up and winning the game, but there are two problems with that. One, if you have Toxic, Wish, Protect, and your last move is Charm, like, then you are really missing the point of Umbreon, in my opinion, which is to be a Pursuit Trapper. And two, even though you could Charm spam with the Umbreon, because of Toxic, Umbreon is going to die eventually. And even if my Snorlax is really low, I'm just going to switch out, come back in, and then I can do the same type of idea against Celebi. So this is why I found a lot of value in going for Toxic earlier in the game on Umbreon, even knowing that this Umbreon has Synchronize and would have got it on my Starmie. But now I can just go for Curse anytime the Umbreon is in, because even if it tries to 1v1 my Snorlax for whatever reason, Toxic damage will tick up. I go for another Curse here, and now I'm in 2-hit KO range on many Suicunes, so I'm going to go for Return, and I get a crit. And that's going to significantly speed up this end game here, and my opponent's actually just going to forfeit. Now, I don't feel too bad for that, because I missed a Mega Horn which would have just straight up iced the Celebi, and my opponent would have had to go for a Suicune end game much earlier. And I have a modest Zapdos, a Heracross, who's probably going to be faster, and a Snorlax into last Mon Suicune, which I feel like I should win that. So, yeah, that's the first game there. Let's get the next game going. Against this guy, Gerald Emerlan. That's kind of an interesting name. Zapdos versus Salamence. There could be a whole BKC video on this as well. Zapdos is generally favored into Salamence, but Salamence could run Choice Band and Rock Slide. If you don't have some defensive investment on your Zapdos, you could just straight up die to that. But I do have some defensive investment on my Zapdos. I could have stayed in and went for Thunderbolt or bluffed HP Ice if I would have liked. I mean, not really too much utility in that. But I anticipate that my opponent's going to switch, so I'm going to switch as well. And I catch Blissey switching in with my Metagross. So Metagross is just going to boom. Because I kind of figured that the appropriate switch there would be Skarmory, but it actually is Fortress, and I get to Houdini the Fortress. But this is what I'm talking about. Fortress doesn't always die to Explosion, so I will have to go something that can threaten to kill the Fortress. I will go Heracross in this case, and get some big Mega Horn chip on Salamence, and I reveal that it has leftovers. So most likely a Mixed Ments, but it goes for Flamethrower. Again, a kind of weak Flamethrower. There's a Fortress. There's a Blissey. This is a bulky Mixed Wish team. I swear to God. Might be Buff Stall, in fact, which is Blissey, Umbreon Fortress, which is a team that I'm going to take credit for as the person who did it in the Umbreon video that I made. But no, I'm not the only person who's thought of that. I can't imagine. Ludicolo in versus Blissey. I will always go for Leech Seed there, and Gengar comes in. I Leech Seed that. I'll just take Surf damage on it, which is fine by me. It goes for Burn, which is a little annoying, but Burn is not a... Of all the status conditions Ludicolo could be inflicted with, Burn is probably the least consequential. I don't mind the attack nerf, and because I have Leech Seed, I can often outpace the damage of Burn, so that's fine by me. Means I can't get Thunder Wave later, which is fine. Heracross is not a good switch to Salamence, so I will have to go to Zapdos. And predicting my opponent to want to go to Blissey, I will go to Snorlax. Now the Tyranitar has been revealed. I go for Curse, and my Snorlax has no move to hit Tyranitar, so this is going to be a little awkward. But I am going to try to trade with the Tyranitar anyway. I go for another Curse here as Gengar comes in. And I can just opt to go for a Shadow Ball to kill the Gengar, and I actually catch Fortress instead, which is fine by me. If Gengar tried to Wisp me, I have Rest, so I'm not ultimately that worried about it. But I'm getting up to +3 now, as this Tyranitar is going to Dragon Dance. This could get really dicey if the Tyranitar crits me, but I actually crit the Tyranitar, so I'm kind of okay here. I get flinched, not great, but as long as I don't get flinched by the next or crit by the next one, I can go for Shadow Ball and finish off the Tyranitar. Shadow Ball would have covered a switch to Gengar, which is why I prefer Shadow Ball there over Return. If Blissey comes in, that's like whatever. I've just returned. I will go to Starmie, and I was kind of expecting this to be a Wish Salamence, which is what I was talking about earlier, but it actually reveals that it is a Mixed Ments with Dragon Claw. That did a lot of damage to Starmie there. I'm going to opt to go for Toxic, because I figure that Toxic is going to get me more than switching to something that is ultimately not going to take a Dragon Claw all that well. But my opponent actually switches to Blissey, which gives me the chance to recover if I would like. But instead I'm going to go to Ludicolo. Now that the Tyranitar is down, this is a pretty good opportunity for me to go for Rain Dance and clear the weather. This means that my Zapdos is going to be a little bit more dangerous, but first I'm going to go for Leech Seed. If Blissey stays in, I'm going to heal a lot of HP. If Salamence comes in, I get a little bit of chip, which is fine. I'm going to Ice Beam into Salamence, because if it opts to go for Dragon Claw, I want to kill it. But again, I'm just going to go for Ice Beam here. Or, sorry, Leech Seed. And look at how much I heal from a Blissey. I heal 26%, which is amazing. Now I can go for Rain Dance. Clears the weather, and Ludicolo is back up to 53% all of a sudden. I'll go for Ice Beam, trying to catch Salamence switching in, but I catch a Swampert and freeze it, which is, I mean, that's great. I'll go for Leech Seed on Swampert, because Swampert has a pretty decent HP stat. I could get a lot of HP if it chooses to stay in, and if Blissey comes in, I'm going to heal back up to basically full. Then I'm going to go for Ice Beam again, trying to catch Salamence. And then we're going to be kind of in this loop where I'm going for Leech Seeds and Ice Beams. I'll go for a Rain Dance here, because if Salamence comes in, I want to be faster than it. Leech Seed this. Blissey's making no progress against us. Look at this. We're burned, and we're taking an Ice Beam from Blissey, and we end up healing more HP. Pretty much. So I kind of thought that my opponent would switch to Swampert here, so I go for Surf to get more damage. I'm going to go for Leech Seed here, so that I can heal some. And I think I'm going to go for Leech Seed again. In fact, I'm not. I'm going to go straight to Snorlax, which is also fine into the Blissey. I'm going to go for Return, anticipating Salamence to want to come in, and I get some nice chip on it. Now I'll go to Starmie to sack it, but instead my opponent will go for Brick Break, which makes sense. Which allows me to go for Toxic, and I catch the Blissey coming in. Now I'll go back to Ludicolo, and my opponent goes to Salamence. I think Ludicolo is going to live a hit from here, so I can go for Ice Beam, and that's fine. Now I can go for Leech Seed. And then we're kind of back into this loop where the Blissey's not going to be able to make any progress against me. Now, my opponent can try to stall me out of Leech Seeds, which is, I kind of think, what they were trying to do from the get-go. But I still have, what, 6 more Leech Seeds, and if I can kill the Swampert or the Salamence, then I'm in a, like, Ludicolo is getting crazy good value here. Swampert will come in to a Surf and die, which is really good because I have one more turn of Rain. Salamence cannot come in because I will outspeed and Ice Beam it. Now Salamence comes in on a Leech Seed, which is great for the Salamence. But now that the Frozen Pokemon is dead, I can go for Ice Beam and potentially get another Freeze. Whoa! That is not a pop-up that I expected to see. That's an ad blocker. It's not anything too crazy. But yeah, no. We're kind of into this loop here. I choose to break the loop and go Heracross, who is in it versus the Blissey, which is really nice for me. I'll go for Substitute and Substitute down. The idea here is that I want to get to 1 HP so that my Reversal will do a lot of damage. And even against Salamence, Reversal is going to do a lot. So I can go for Substitute here. I will get the Salac. I can go for Swords Dance. Now I am +1 and faster than Salamence, and this should usually kill Salamence from here, believe it or not. Gengar will come in to blank that, but now it's going to have to take a Mega Horn, or we're going to see a switch to Salamence, and I get a critical hit, which, yeah, I mean, I would not have killed without the critical hit, but my opponent would have had to switch to Gengar, sacked it, then gone to Salamence again to put me at -1. I would have went for Reversal. If they switch to Blissey, they lose the Blissey, and then they'll just lose the game. But they're going to take a heavy amount of chip there, and then the combination of my remaining 4 Pokemon should beat the last 2. So yeah, the hacks happened in my favor. I acknowledge that, but I think I would have won anyway. So now we're on to this game. Lead Zapdos versus Lead Zapdos. Generally, I like to Thunderbolt into other Lead Zapdos, particularly because I like to run Modest Zapdos, so I will outdamage most other Zapdos. I will go to Metagross on a Leech Seed click from Celebi, and then I'm going to hard switch to Ludicolo, kind of trying to catch whatever as a switch-in. Swampert is a very common switch-in to Metagross, and Ludicolo is going to threaten the Swampert out, especially if it doesn't know whether I have a Grass move or not. I will go for Ice Beam to try to catch the Celebi. That is a very bulky Celebi, probably utility. So I can go to Heracross here, anticipating that the Celebi will not click anything that will do any significant damage there. But I get Toxic, which is not great because I'm not a Guts Heracross. But I will just opt to stay in and click Mega Horn again. If the opponent goes for T-Bolt, they should put me on Swarm range, so I should just kill them. I get a critical hit, but I don't think it matters because the Swarm boost would help me out there. And now I am down to 10%, and because I went into Salac range due to Toxic, I actually don't get my Salac berry off, which is a really unfortunate interaction. Dugtrio can then come in and eliminate me with Earthquake. If that's not how it worked, switch to Dugtrio would have forced another kill. Or I would have had to hit another Mega Horn, but if I did, I would have killed something else, or done significant damage to Swampert. Because Dugtrio is locked into Earthquake, I can simply go to Ludicolo and click Ice Beam on the incoming Celebi. I'm going to go for another Ice Beam. If I get a critical hit or a freeze, then I'm in a really good spot. I do get a critical hit. Force the Celebi to recover again. Now Metagross is in. And I can simply go for Double Edge, which is a great mid-ground into whatever. And I hit the Swampert with a crit. That crit definitely mattered. Now I can go to Ludicolo to finish off the Swampert. The thing is, I don't necessarily want to finish off the Swampert with my Metagross, because then that invites Dugtrio to come in to deal with my Metagross, which I don't necessarily want to sack my Metagross to Dugtrio this early. It might still be useful to boom on something later. Anticipating my opponent to want to go for Protect, I set up the Rain Dance, which will allow my Ludicolo to outspeed Dugtrio, so I can't get trapped by that. I wouldn't even really be trapped anyway, because HP Bug is not doing enough damage to kill Ludicolo from full. And I go for Ice Beam, anticipating the Celebi to want to come in, but Swampert actually stays in and goes for Hydro Pump. It does nothing. Like, that's rain boosted Hydro Pump from Swampert. Admittedly, this is probably a defensive Swampert who doesn't have a lot of attack investment, but like, look at how little I took, and then I was able to just come back. Now I will go to Metagross on Celebi, who goes for Toxic, and that does nothing. Goes for Leech Seed and misses it, and I get a critical hit there, and that also mattered. But now Dugtrio will follow up and kill my Metagross, who is just critting everything. Ludicolo is in. I can Leech Seed on Starmie, which is really nice. I'll go to my own Starmie, who takes an Ice Beam pretty well. This is likely a Thunderbolt, but I will go for, I believe... Well, I actually switched to Snorlax. It could have been interesting if I went for Toxic there. But since I'm in with Snorlax, I'm just going to trade into this Tyranitar. It goes for Rock Slide immediately and has a pretty significant amount of bulk to not take so much from return. So I'm thinking that this might be just bulky physical attacker. I'll go to Starmie and get Surf damage off on it. Which is putting it into Surf range for Ludicolo. So I'll go for Surf there, and I get a pretty sizable amount of damage on Starmie here. Starmie doesn't have a great move to hit me, so I'm just going to go for Surf and trade into it. As long as I don't get frozen, I should be fine. Now I'll go to Snorlax, who should take a Starmie hit pretty well. And there's not a super duper great switch into return, but I'm gonna Curse because Starmie shouldn't be doing too much to me anyway. Starmie misses its Hydro Pump. That's chip that could have been useful in the end game here, but Snorlax now at +1, I can just pretty safely trade into this Tyranitar. If I get flinched and whatever, that's fine, but I get a crit. In fact, I got a lot of critical hits this game, I'm just realizing. But the justice occurs. Now all is forgiven, right? Because I got flinched there. Not exactly. Ludicolo will come in, and Tyranitar, I will not die to a Tyranitar hit unless I get crit. So I'm going to eliminate it just to make sure. Same concept with Dugtrio, who's going to have to lock into a move to hit Ludicolo. It goes for HP Bug. I go for Rain Dance because if I live it, I will then outspeed and get the kill. Look at me, I'm at 1571. I'm nice with it sometimes. And even if it did get the critical hit, then Zapdos follow-up should win the game. Quite nice. Ludicolo still showing off its power there. I mean, granted, it was the Metagross critting everything that really won this game, but quite nice. And that kind of just shows that you don't necessarily want to clear the weather right away with Ludicolo. There were a few opportunities there. Let's see. Like, I could have cleared the weather against this Starmie, but Tyranitar would have just set the weather back up, which not necessarily great for me. Now, granted, I could have been fine because I would have gotten some leftovers healing, and then I would have outsped the Starmie and potentially killed it with Surf. But I would have taken some extra damage that I didn't necessarily have to take as I switched to Snorlax there, which allowed, I believe, for Ludicolo to live Dugtrio at the end game. It's possible that taking an extra Ice Beam to clear the weather early would have allowed my Ludicolo to die to Dugtrio earlier, which maybe could have complicated the end game. Now, granted, I think Zapdos still would have won, but yeah, we don't want to take unnecessary damage to clear the weather when it's not going to stick for us. Next game here, Zapdos versus Zapdos. Celebi switch. I mean, this is like deja vu right here. I will go to Ludicolo and block the Leech Seed here. I'll go for Ice Beam, again taking Chip, and I get a critical hit on Celebi, which is really nice, and it goes for Toxic. That's a little interesting. You don't really see Toxic Celebi too often. As Fortress will come in, which is not nice for me. I'm going to go to Heracross, not because Heracross beats Fortress per se, but I can threaten to just set up on Fortress if it opts to stay in. So I go for Substitute again, trying to make the reversal play, but this is actually a slow Salamence, that's a little strange. It's probably the high Spidef variant that's trying to live a Blissey Ice Beam. In any case, I stay in with Zapdos here to get Thunderbolt damage off. And I get crunched, which is really nasty, and I get the drop, and then of course that allows Pursuit to kill me as I switch out. I probably should have just stayed in and taken another Thunderbolt, but like, come on, man. I go for Curse here with Snorlax. Yes, I know that there were two Pokemon revealed, and now a third Pokemon that kind of makes my Snorlax thud. But I'm gonna bluff that I have a move to hit Metagross here and hopefully get it to boom. And it does boom on me, which is nice. If the opponent went for another Meteor Mash, I would have been screwed because +2 Shadow Ball is not doing nearly enough to Metagross. But now I will go to my own Metagross here, and I will Meteor Mash into the Zapdos. I don't want it to substitute or anything. And I do manage to call the substitute. I get a raise, which is really nice. My opponent will go to Fortress. I'm doing 45% to that, and I get another boost. And I just kill that Fortress off. So I completely neutralize the Fortress without having to Houdini, which is really cool. I'll just stay in and click Meteor Mash. If I hit, I kill. And Metagross is now at +3 with a Choice Band. Salamence should kill this, though. But importantly, the Salamence cannot go for Dragon Dance because 85% of the time you will lose the Salamence, and now the game is over. So that's why I stay in and click that. I can go for Rapid Spin here against the Tyranitar, and then because it is a Pursuit Tyranitar, I'm just going to click Surf and try to kill it. I will live the Crunch, but I die to the Sand, so that's not fortunate for me. Now Ludicolo can come in. I will go for Rain Dance because any switch in, particularly to Salamence, means now that Ludicolo is guaranteed to be faster, I will get my Ice Beam off. And then Celebi is low enough now that I can just Ice Beam and finish that off. Tyranitar will come in. Because it's a Pursuit Tyranitar, I feel like I'm not going to die to any one hit. So I would just go for Rain Dance to clear the weather. Now Tyranitar has to switch out to reset the Sand, and because of that, I go for Ice Beam here. And that kills the Salamence, and now I just win the game. Tara's back in, and my Ludicolo will live on literally 1 HP as I go for Surf and get the kill there, which is really nice. This is maybe an argument here. A lot of things in this game deal damage as a multiple of 4. So you want to make sure potentially if you want to use this Ludicolo, to have an HP stat that is specifically not a multiple of 4, so that you're not like taking the rounding. You're gonna benefit from the rounding and how it works. So I believe that my Ludicolo stat is exactly 338, same as our Maldos, for the same reason, that we can take 4 seismic tosses after our leftovers recovery. And because Ludicolo is pretty consistent at clearing the weather, you can assume that sand won't be up. And that can help you out a lot if you are missing all your leech seeds against Blissey, I guess. But notably, 338 is not a multiple of 4, so I will not be I will be benefiting from the rounding here, so that's really nice. Final match against Shiny Loudred. That's not Shiny Ledian, but I guess it is Loudred, and you can have an argument in the comment section about whether Ledian or Loudred is a better Pokemon. I'm gonna say Ledian. Zapdos versus the Primal One, which is such a sick name for a Tyranitar. I switched to Metagross here, anticipating a Rock Slide, but instead I get Ice Beamed. That's strange. I will live a Fire Blast, so I'm just going to go for Meteor Mash. If I get the kill, great. I will go to Zapdos so that Skarmory is not able to set up all the layers on me, which is really nice. 1 layer is acceptable. 3 layers is really bad. I can go for HP Grass into Swampert. I will sometimes even just straight up kill it, depending on what Swampert said it is, but instead we see a Blissey here. Now I can go to Ludicolo. Blissey should not have any move that hits Ludicolo for any real significant amount of damage. So I can go for Leech Seed. I catch Skarmory, and now I have the opportunity to clear the weather if I so choose. But instead, I'm going to go to Starmie, who takes a Toxic. That's kind of alright. This team looks like a big 5 structure, so I'm kind of thinking that's a Gengar will come in, but instead my opponent goes to Blissey. If they're going to Blissey on Starmie there with a Spike Up, I'm assuming they don't have a Spin blocker, so I will go for a Spin there, and I get T-bolted for my troubles. Starmie is ridiculously low, but I can Natural Cure off my poison, and if I clear the weather, then Starmie can come in without fear of dying to sand. But instead I'm going to go for Leech Seed because I'm a greedy bastard. And if my opponent opts to go for a Spike, now Starmie is dead and I'm not able to eliminate the spikes. I go to Metagross here, and I go for Meteor Mash. I was kind of assuming that my opponent would fear a banded Metagross and click a Protect, but instead they go for Roar, which is pretty sensible. If they drag my Starmie in, it's dead, but they drag my Zapdos in, which is actually also kind of fine, because I threatened the Skarmory. It's going to have to switch. It goes to Blissey, and I call that. I go to Metagross, and I think... What am I going to do here? Am I booming? Yes, I boom, and I Houdini the Skarmory. So a little bit roundabout, but I managed to get there. I have Ludicolo in versus Swampert, which is really nice for me, and I'm opting to clear the weather now, which is really nice because they reveal Salamence, and now I'm faster at getting Ice Beam off. Force the switch to Blissey, which I can just Leech Seed. Thunderbolt Ice Beam is usually Calm Mind Blissey, which is kind of okay for my team. I don't necessarily mind that too much, because at least you don't have status, but unfortunately I get status on my Ludicolo, which is kind of big because now I cannot outspeed the Salamence even in the rain. So that's going to limit my Ludicolo's ability to potentially sweep in the endgame here. I'm going to sack Starmie to see what my opponent goes to. They go to Swampert, which allows me to get my Snorlax in. They're going to go for Earthquake, but that's not doing all that much. I can just Curse up. Earthquake, again, not doing much. Based on that damage, I was kind of comfortable assuming that this is not a Focus Punch Swampert. Now that I'm at +2, Hydro Pump is going to deal more. Importantly, my return does not put Swampert into Torrent range, so I won't be taking too much from that. Snorlax is in versus Aerodactyl now. I go for a Curse here because I feel like I should live multiple Rock Slides. If I even if I get flinched there, I should live after Leftovers recovery, and now I can go for Rest. Salamence is in, and it's going to have to crit a Brick Break to beat this Snorlax. My opponent will now go to Aerodactyl, probably just trying to sack that off so they can cycle Intimidates with Salamence, but, I mean, whatever, I don't care. I'm just going to Curse. And Shiny Loudred understands the position that they're in and opts to forfeit the game there. Could have played for a crit, maybe, but even a crit Brick Break is not going to kill Snorlax at full HP, so that's kind of how the cookie crumbles there. And Ludicolo was the one that facilitated that end game there. You saw how low my Snorlax got. If Sand was there and I was not getting my Leftovers chip, I would have had to rest early, which would have opened up the opportunity for one of Aerodactyl or Salamence to beat down and win against the Snorlax. But because I eliminated the Sand, Snorlax was just a really solid endgame threat there. Nothing that my opponent really could have done outside of getting a crit while I was at low HP. So that kind of concludes this video. I'm getting a little longer with my videos as of late, which is maybe good for some of you, maybe not so good for some of you, I don't know. At the time that this gets released, I'm probably going to be on vacation. So I was trying to get some videos done early, so I would have some to upload for the week that I'm gone. But I might not be able to work on too many other videos while I'm on vacation. At best, I could get one, but I'm gonna try to enjoy myself, which I do enjoy myself while I'm playing Pokemon, of course. But you know, take a load off, take a little break. So when I come back the following week, it may take me to the middle of the week to have something prepared. So I didn't fall off. I'm not dead. I'm just taking some time off. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed my Zapdos video that I put out. Thank you again for 300 subscribers. And I hope you enjoy any little tidbit videos that I managed to squeeze in as well. So yeah, happy laddering, everybody.